what they stand for, and especially we'll be finding out what Atiku Abubakar really went to the United States to do, and some of those engagements that he had, how much of benefit that will be to their campaign and to Nigerians, plus some of the reactions that have come between the two parties, the APC and the PDP. But stay with me, everyone. Let's check out some of your political roundup stories.
The Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has sworn in 19 resident electoral commissioners recently appointed by President Muhammadu Buhari and screened by the Senate. Speaking at a swearing-in ceremony in Abuja, the INEC chairman charges the new commissioners to be upright in the discharge of their services, bearing in mind that their loyalties to the country and not to any individual, group or political party. 14 of the newly sworn-in commissioners are fresh appointments, while 5 are reappointed for a second term by President Muhammadu Buhari. The River State Governor Nyesom Wike has appointed and sworn in political aides, which include special assistants from 2 senatorial districts. The appointees are part of the 100,000 personnel the governor promised to recruit from senatorial districts of the state. Speaking at the inauguration ceremony, Governor Wike assigned a uniform portfolio of special assistants on political unit affairs to all of them, with a charge to send in feedback from the people at the grassroots to help his administration end well. The Imo State Governor, Hope Uzodimma, says despite the security challenges faced in Imo State in the wake of his administration, his government has not relented in delivering good governance and dividends of democracy to the people of the state. Governor Uzodimma disclosed this at the government house in Owerri during the swearing-in ceremony of 5 new commissioners into the state's executive council.
Despite all the challenges of insecurity, we've been able to deliver service to our people.
The presidential candidate of the All Progressives Congress, Mr. Bola Ahmed Tinubu, is assuring the people of Kogi State that he will provide what is due to the state if elected president of Nigeria in 2023. Mr. Tinubu, who was represented by the governor of the state, Mr. Yahaya Bello, stated this while addressing party supporters in Lokoja, the Kogi State capital, where he donated the sum of 100 million naira to victims of the floods in Kogi State.
One of the reasons we have put together this special work for Tinubu is to draw attention to these flooding problems.
The State Working Committee of the All Progressives Congress in Adamawa State has rejected a list of presidential and governorship campaign council members alleged to have been compiled by Senator Aisha Binani, whose election as the party's governorship candidate in Adamawa State for the 2023 elections was recently nullified by Federal High Court in Yola. Addressing journalists in Yola, the spokesperson of the party in the state, Abdullahi Mohammed, said the list was compiled by Senator Binani without consulting critical party stakeholders for final approval.
In view of the above, the party hereby rejects the list in circulation and urge party members and the general public to disregard same.
The Court of Appeal Sokoto Division has adjourned a case filed by Senator Adamu Alero, asking the court to reverse an earlier decision of the Federal High Court Yola over the People's Democratic Party Kebbi Central senatorial candidate in the 2023 elections till the 21st of November 2022. Justice Babagana Ashiga of the Federal High Court Birnin Kebbi on September the 27th this year upheld the primary election that produced Haruna Saidu as the authentic senatorial candidate for the seat. Not satisfied with the judgment, Alero, through his counsel, Mr. Damian Dodo, approached the appellate court, challenging the decision on the grounds of substantive laws, right to fair hearing, and breach of procedures. Also, Mr. Dodo urged the appellate court to recognize Yahaya Abubakar as the right candidate for the Kebbi North senatorial seat against Sani Bawa. The member representing Wukari and Ibi Federal Constituency at the National Assembly, Danjuma Shidi, and the Taraba State Governor, Darius Ishaku, are disagreeing over allegations by the federal legislator that the governor ordered the arrest of his campaign director general, thereby disrupting democracy in the state. The governor is insisting that the federal lawmakers' claim is false, malicious, and a miscalculated political move by the opposition party to make itself relevant in Taraba State politics again. In a swift reaction, the state governor, Darius Ishaku, represented by his commissioner for information, is insisting that it is a case of security agencies carrying out their duties on persons engaged in disrupting the peaceful atmosphere and security in the state.
Right, thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us. Now, let's tell you that the leader of the Pan-Yoruba socio-political organization, Afenifere, Chief Reuben Fasoranti, said that he was misinterpreted in the media on the issue between himself and the acting leader of the group, Pa Ayo Adebanjo. Pa Fasoranti said he never stopped Pa Adebanjo from being the acting leader of the group. There were controversies when Pa Fasoranti on Sunday endorsed the candidate of the All Progressives Congress APC, Bola Tinubu, while Pa Adebanjo had earlier declared support for the Labour Party candidate Peter Obi on behalf of the association. In a statement today, through his personal assistant, Pa Fasoranti says that he has not said Chief Ayo Adebanjo is no longer the acting leader of Afenifere, nor that all future Afenifere meetings should henceforth be held at his residence in Akure. The statement says, quote, Papa's main concern is the interest of the Yorubas in the complex political situation in Nigeria. It is also his concern that Afenifere should survive in dignity and remain a purveyor of the interest of the Yoruba race. End of quote. Well then, let's tell you that within the major political parties, the PDP, the APC, the Labour Party, the NNPP, there's been back and forth. These political parties have been throwing jabs at each other over campaign promises, manifestos, agenda for Nigeria, and all sorts. But what is important for us, because it is very difficult to sieve out what the real issues are, but here on the program, you know what we do. We give you those information and the reality of the politicians and what they say, the promises, and we bring them to you for you to be the judge as a voter and the average Nigerian. Now, tonight, we'll be looking at what the APC candidate Bola Tinubu says he's going to do in his manifesto and what the PDP candidate Atiku Abubakar said he's also going to do in his manifesto. Both of these men have reeled out their agenda and their plans, and tonight we'll dissect them for you. Joining me tonight from London is one of the aides to Atiku Abubakar, who was with him in the United States to what they call it, to expand the frontier of the party and have expanded engagement, is Mr. Rano Omakri, a former presidential aide and a member of the PDP. Thank you so much, Mr. Omakri, for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Sheon. But can I correct something, Sheon? I'm not an aide to Waziri Atiku Abubakar. No, that's I'm his friend, but I'm not his aide. I'm not on his staff. I'm a member of the People's Democratic Party, but not his aide.
I said you're a former presidential aide. That's what I said, yeah. So, yeah. And from our Lagos studio is the SSA to the President on Public Affairs and the Deputy Principal Spokesperson of the Tinubu Shatima Presidential Campaign Council, Mr. Ajuri Ngelale. He joins us from our Lagos studio. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Let's begin the conversation with you, Mr. Omokri. You are with the candidate, Atiku Abubakar, in the United States. The big question is, more than anyone that was not on that trip, you will be able to tell Nigerians what exactly took the team to the United States and what the meetings, the outcome of the meetings were.
Well, what took Waziri Atiku Abubakar to the United States was an invitation by the United States government to just have like a briefing with him. And he met with the U.S. Assistant Secretary of State, Molly McPhee. Now, the meeting was hosted by the State Department, but then there were several other people from different branches of the executive arm of the United States government, Treasury, Department of Justice, Defense, and other departments. And they briefed him, and they talked about their plans, how to liaise with Nigeria in the future. And they also wanted to hear from him, like how he intended to handle Nigeria-U.S. relationships. And one of the things that they talked about the election, how to engender free and fair elections. Now, in the past, they've always waited until after the election before they intervene. And this time around, they said they're going to be watching for comments and actions that will spur violence, and then they will take action. Some of the actions that they're going to be taking will be, and not limited to, visa bans. And then also there's going to be peer pressure, presidential peer pressure directly from President Biden to President Muhammadu Buhari to ensure that the elections were free and fair. And that post-election, one of the things that they're going to be doing is to try to support INEC to have third-party audit. Now, what's a third-party audit? A third-party audit is where INEC is using software to run the election, and then after the election, they're going to have declared the results. Now, a third-party audit would be to get a consulting group, maybe KPMG, PricewaterhouseCoopers, any of them, to audit that software to make sure that what was declared was indeed what was entered into the software. And then other things, they talked about how Nigeria can get more foreign direct investment, because according to them, that Nigeria is the fourth largest polluter or methane pollution in the whole world, and that if we can address that, then it's going to lead to more foreign direct investment, because there's something coming up in the world called blue tick investment, whereby they're trying to have investments that will protect the climate because of all the problems we're having with climate change. And then countries where you have pollution, like in contravention of the Paris Accord, you're going to have these companies, blue tick investment companies, not wanting to go to those countries. And so they talked to us that, an incoming administration would have to address that, reduce Nigeria's methane pollution. And then there were other areas that they talked about, the war on terror, how to support Nigeria, and the things that have in the past have triggered sanctions against Nigeria, how to avoid that. And generally, it was a very, very good, it was a good briefing. And then also the candidate also had meetings with the United States Institute for Peace, and he also gave an interview to the Voice of America. All in all, it was a successful outing, and then it projected Nigeria strongly to the U.S. and to the entire world.
So I'm very sure that you probably have been following some of the comments and reactions to the trip of Atiku Abubakar and his team to the United States. One about it is some of the interesting comments about how about 16 men were in the photograph with the lone lady said to be from the Department of State. Was it that it was only one person that met the team from the Department of State? I mean, that's how much the photograph revealed.
No, it wasn't one person. That person, that's Molly McPhee, the U.S. Assistant Secretary of State. There's a protocol. Altogether, the meeting lasted for about almost 4 hours, I think 3 hours and 53 minutes. And then you had Under Secretary of State. You also had several people from different departments of the executive branch, from the Department of Justice, the Treasury, Trade, and various people from USAID, also from different departments of the. So altogether, I would say there were teams. The people who addressed us were about 40 people. They were not all there at once. So what would happen is that 8 people would brief us, and then we would ask questions, and then they would get up and go, and then another 8 will come. And so there was like a change like that. 8 people briefing and then going, and altogether there were about 40 people. When we were about to leave, those people sat down according to the protocol, and then the U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for Africa, Molly McPhee, escorted us out, and that was when that photo was taken. So it wasn't as if she was the only one there. Actually, the people who briefed us were more than the people who were there, the 16 people who were there.
How come it was only the photo of the woman that was the surface? What about, are there no other photos taken?
Well, in answer to your question, the State Department asked that we do not publish all of those photos, and that any photo that was going to be published and released to the media had to be cleared by them. You have to understand that a lot of these people are civil servants, and just like you have it in Nigeria, there is a ban on civil servants being involved in politics. So when you have those photos, if they're coming out in the newspapers, it's in their own interpretation. It's like civil servants being involved in politics. So that's why they wanted just the political head, the U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for Africa, Molly McPhee, to be in the photo. It's not as if that they were, like I said, and this, you can actually confirm this from the U.S. Embassy in Nigeria. There were probably more than 40. I'm just being conservative. There were about 40 people briefing us in phases, groups of 8. So it was really a large and expansive meeting. That photo is just a photo of the head of the delegation that met with us.
There are two dimensions to that visit. I mean, from those who have been assessing it and looking at it, you wonder how many presidential candidates of the United States come to Nigeria for consultation. Or in fact, how many of American presidential or politicians go outside of America, maybe to the UK, France, or to other countries, even if they're not coming to Africa, to seek consultation or to seek guidance. So that's
in answer to that question, in 2008, when Obama ran, if you recall, when he ran for office, he went to Europe. He actually gave a speech in Germany. He met with the German government. He also went to the United Kingdom. You know, when George Bush ran himself, he also traveled around the world. You know, here's the thing. If you as a candidate want to run, you have to be able to have foreign policy credentials. And one of the ways that you get that is by meeting with other leaders around the world, other governments around the world in preparation to be president. So you don't wait until you're president to do that. You prepare yourself so that you can hit the ground running. You have to understand that Nigeria, and this is one of the reasons why he was invited, Nigeria is the largest market in Africa for the United States, and not just for the United States, for Europe. And then Nigeria also has the largest economy in Africa. We've got peacekeeping forces in various countries. So to ensure that there is no breach, you know, these people will want to see, okay, these and these people are likely to emerge as presidents in the, you know, so maybe if we invite them, we want to know, and it's also good for us too. So that when the person is elected, whoever is going to be, and I believe it's going to be Waziri Atiku Abubakar, that person will be ready to lead from day one.
So before I rest the issue of the foreign trip, were you able, when I'm saying you, I'm referring to the team, Atiku Abubakar and the team that he had with him, able to extract anything concrete from the United States government and the institutions there in the United States ahead of the elections? You went there with some prayers. You went there seeking some guidance and help. What exactly would you say is a concrete benefit or what you derived out of that, of the old meetings that you had?
We didn't go there for guidance at all, not at all. But however, we did have an agenda. And one of the agendas that we had was that we should have a free and fair elections. Because you know that if you look at the history, and the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior. Now, elections in Nigeria, sometimes they've not been up to par. You know, sometimes there have been challenges. We saw with the 2019 elections, the challenges that we had. So one of the things that we had, with one of the, I won't say demands, but one of the desires that we had was for the United States to ensure and give every support to INEC and every support to the security services to help them be ready for the elections, and then to also make a commitment right now, not during the elections or after the elections, right now, that they will take actions against anybody promoting violence or promoting anything that will affect free and fair elections. And they did make that commitment. You know, like I told you, the commitments where they said President Biden was going to use a peer pressure with President Muhammadu Buhari, it didn't just come from them. It was after they finished briefing us, and then the presidential candidate listened and said, okay, yes, it's all good. We've heard what you want to do, but what are you going to do now to make sure that people will already get the right message? Because you're very influential, you're giving financial support to INEC and other groups in Nigeria. And that was when they said, listen, we're not just going to wait, we're going to have political peer pressure from President Biden directly to President Muhammadu Buhari, and also we're going to have a third-party audit of the election results. So those were the commitments that we secured.
Now, finally, on that trip, give me an understanding. You said, apart from the Department of State meeting, you said you were there also at the Institute of Peace Affairs, isn't it?
United States Institute for Peace.
It's
a Congress. It's an institution created by Congress.
Absolutely, I know that. It's I think it's off Pennsylvania Street. Now, there was another thing that you mentioned, another meeting you had, isn't it?
Well, there are other meetings that were had, which I haven't talked about because we're not at liberty to talk about them. Would I say those were high-level meetings that we can't talk about those meetings in the media. However, I did say that other than the United States Institute for Peace, the presidential candidate gave an interview to the Voice of America where he talked about his plans and his future for Nigeria and also for Nigeria-United States relationships.
So there were no photos of your meeting at the Institute for Peace?
Oh, no, there are photos. Those photos were released to the media. I'm surprised you haven't seen them. Actually, if you check on the candidate's Facebook page and on his Twitter profile and also on Instagram, you should see photos there. I mean, it was received and the photos were there, photos of him and then of his party.
All right, stay with me, Mr. Omokri, because I'm going to take you into the manifesto of Mr. Atiku Abubakar. His promises to Nigeria as we go into the deep of the election campaigns. Stay with me for a moment. Let me go to our Lagos studio and get Mr. Ajuri Ngelale into the conversation. Ajuri, give us an understanding, or perhaps I should first and foremost allow you to respond to what Mr. Buala said on the program yesterday, that your party is campaigning against itself. I mean, I think it's right to give you, your party and your campaign organization, a chance of a response to some of these issues.
Thank you very much for the time, Sheon, and the privilege of being on your program. This is the first time I've joined you since, of course, I became SSA in 2019. I would just respond to Mr. Buala's statement by dissecting what it is he said and what it is that's true. And obviously, what he said was absolutely false. If you look at our manifesto, you would find that on page 5, for example, when we begin to open up our plans for security in the country, we made it very clear on page 5 that we are building on the foundations laid by President Muhammadu Buhari in terms of the massive armament that has been conducted under his administration over the last 7 years, not just in the Air Force with new fighter jets that were procured through government-to-government transactions with various countries, including the United States government, which was actually signed in a meeting between President Donald Trump at that time and President Muhammadu Buhari. We're not chasing mid-level bureaucrats in Washington for clout chasing or prestige chasing. We go to get things done. We go when we need to get things done. I think, on the other hand, if you look at the manifesto, you would also find on page 27, when we talked about agriculture and His Excellency Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu's plans for agriculture, he makes clear on page 27 that we are building on the successful foundation laid by President Muhammadu Buhari in agricultural reform in the country. We went from a situation in 2015 where we were the largest importer of rice in Africa. Today, we are the largest producer of rice in Africa. We have gone from about 5 rice mills in the country to well over 30 rice mills in the country. We have invested massively in processing. We have, obviously, everybody knows through the Anchor Borrowers Program what we've done with over 1 trillion naira given out to millions of farmers across this country in low-interest capital to enable them to rapidly increase their production, not just in rice, but in wheat, cocoa, and many other staple items. If you look at the manifesto, anybody who has read the manifesto, which clearly Mr. Buala proved to the nation he did not in his statement, you would know that we're very clear about the fact that we are proud of President Muhammadu Buhari's record. What we are saying, though, is that His Excellency Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, his name is not President Muhammadu Buhari. He is not President Muhammadu Buhari, and his plans are not going to be the same. What we are saying is that with the foundations that have been laid, we are now going to accelerate those reforms, and we are going to make modifications that will add value to the reforms that had already been undertaken across sectors. Now, with that said, I think it's also important to note that when you find, spokespersons of a particular party always pointing fingers at somebody else and always trying to make, issue innuendos and speculation about other parties, it's because they know they don't have a record to run on. They don't. Look, I have a question for anybody who sympathizes with the People's Democratic Party. It's a very simple question. can you just tell Nigerians in the 16 years that your party had, from 1999 to 2015, can you name those federal expressways, 100-kilometer federal expressways that you started construction on and you completed construction on? Can you tell us also those rail lines, the high-speed rail lines, or even the slow, old colonial-era rail lines that you started, or that you started rehabilitation on and finished rehabilitation on in 16 years? Can you also tell us about social investment programs that you started and saw into implementation in 16 years with double the wealth and double the time? The reason why there's no genius in PDP that can answer affirmatively to those questions is because you cannot manufacture reality. Unfortunately, their history is their history and they cannot run away from it. So what they want to do is distract the country from what they failed to do by pointing false flags and fingers at the ruling party that has a record to run on. We can tell you that we inherited 5 international airports in this country at a completion percentage of 11%. And we can tell you that by the end of President Muhammadu Buhari's administration, the Port Harcourt International Airport, which was completed in 2018 and commissioned, the Abuja International Airport that was completed in 2017 and commissioned, the Murtala Mohammed International Airport in Lagos that was completed in early 2022 and commissioned into use. And then, of course, Aminu Kano in Kano is going to be commissioned, I believe, before the end of this year or in the early months of next year. And then, of course, the Akano Ibiam International Airport, where we built a new 10 billion naira runway of international standard, and the new international airport terminal will also be completed. My point is that we have a record that we can run on that is tangible and verifiable. Challenge the PDP to name what they've done for this country.
Let me jump in quickly and ask you, because you can only judge people if there is a criteria for the roles they have applied for. Now, we can only judge, or Nigerians and the voters can only judge President Muhammadu Buhari and the APC government over the last 7 years or more based on what they promised and what they have delivered. So, I mean, in a straightforward answer, can you tell us that President Muhammadu Buhari has performed based on the promises that he gave to Nigeria or Nigerians in 2015? With a range of 1 to 10, 10 being the highest, how would you rate the performance of the Buhari government? 1 being the lowest, 10 being the highest in the last 7 years or more.
Thank you very much, Sheon. I think you know me the way that Nigerians know me, to be a very straight shooter, even when it comes to the assessment of my own administration. I can tell you where I think we have not done as well as we had hoped, and I can tell you where we have outperformed in the areas where we have done extremely well. You cannot talk about what this administration has done without factoring in the context within which it operated. So, for example, now, you're talking about an administration of the last 7 years that dealt with 2 economic recessions, one of them global, and then a once-in-a-century global pandemic, where we saw oil prices crater to as low as $10 per barrel, right? Where countries had shut down, for goodness sake. We understand that there are these peculiarities that any honest assessment must factor in when we make these assessments. With that said, with a consistently low oil price from 2016 to 2021, 2022, you now had a situation where we were able to not only get to the 5 international airports that I've mentioned, all the way to the point of completion. We've been able to construct a high-speed rail line of 326 kilometers that had been abandoned since 1987. These people in 60...
We're going to come there.
I want to land.
Just in a moment. We'll get there. But
Go ahead.
The question I ask is, how do you rate? And I gave you a range a marking scheme.
Right.
With 1 and 10, 10 being the highest. We're going to come to the details and the nitty-gritty of the assessment. 1 being the lowest, 10 being the highest. How would you judge? And I'm giving you a marking scheme to mark yourself as a member of this government.
First and foremost, it is the responsibility of the Nigerian people to mark our government on election day. They marked it in 2019, and they elected us over the candidate that is now running in the opposition. That's number one. Number two, I am not going to abide by an oversimplified judging scale that has no context and no allusion to the realities of what we faced. But if you're asking me a straightforward question of whether I believe that President Muhammadu Buhari's administration has performed well, given all of the factors that I have mentioned and those that I have not even mentioned yet, I will tell you with an emphatic yes that he has done well. This is where I'm going, and I want to be very clear. Some Nigerians have asked me the question, and they're very right to ask me the question. Why is it that our currency has fallen now? It's trading in the black market, parallel market, at 850 naira to the dollar.
Ajuri, we're due for a break. Apologies to cutting into your line of thought. But we'll come back. I have a chart for you to speak to. And perhaps I'll bring in Reno into the conversation again. And we'll look at where Nigeria was in 2015 and where we are at right now based on basic economic indicators, which will help us to dissect where we are at as a people. We'll look at the campaign promises and the choices that are before the Nigerian people. Stay with me, everyone. Ajuri Ngelale in our Lagos studio, Reno Amokri in London virtually. We'll be back with the conversation. The choice in front and on the table before Nigerians to make ahead of February 2023, the presidential race. Stay with me, everyone. Our conversation continues right after now.
At Philomena University Abuja, we are assured of having quality and standard education delivered by excellent faculty. Our students are supported at every step of the way to unlock their dreams, express their potentials, and become the best version of themselves.
University, we have a world-class faculty of law. Our lecturers are top-notch.
Look at me, all of them. So I'm not looking.
So promise and fail, and it don't take, we don't wait. PDP don't come again. Jando malole share, I am a tell you. Jando for governor, Jando under PDP, Jando C23, Jando I am a tell you. Jando for governor, Jando for Lagos, Jando for everybody.
Vote Dr. Abdulaziz Olajide Adediran Jandor as Governor of Lagos State. PDP! Power to the people!
Are you a business owner, distributor, retailer, or shopper? Do you wish to trade your business product and services to a wider audience in Nigeria and across the globe?
The Lagos International Trade Fair 2022 is the right place to be. With over 3,500 exhibitors, over 500,000 visitors from across the African continent and globe.
Also, widespread media coverage from both local and foreign media throughout the 10-day period.
Exhibitors are guaranteed adequate 24-hour security and uninterrupted power supply.
What's more, this year's entry fee is at a reduced cost of 300 naira only.
Date
Friday the 4th of November to the 13th of November 2022.
Venue
Tafawa Balewa Square, Lagos.
Time
8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Day. Visit www.lagosinternationaltradefair.com or call 0700-524-6724. For inquiries, send an email to litf@lagoschamber.com.
The Lagos International Trade Fair.
Connecting businesses, creating value. Brought to you by
Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry.
In partnership with the United Bank for Africa, UBA, Dangote Group, Choice International Group, MTN, Federal Investment Limited, and the United Foods Limited.
It's not just any door, it's new Watson doors, made from nature's finest in refined elements. A door that opens up to the beauty of your home and office space, elegance, luxury, and class. New Watson Doors Industries Limited.
In the heart of Abuja, at the center of the nation, arises a new exclusive community, a project of Paulton Morgan Holdings. From the developers of Grenadines Resort, Katampe, one of Nigeria's finest residential communities, we are excited to share our newest residential community, Rockhampton, by Grenadines Homes, a blend of nature, innovation, and functionality put together to make an exquisite mountainside community. Situated in Katampe Extension with easy access to town, proximity to major landmarks, and other recreational facilities like the IBB Golf Course, Rockhampton offers investors an opportunity to get high returns on their real estate investments. Take advantage of the introductory price and book a unit today with just 10% down payment.
This is the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. Again, a lot of progress also has been made here. We are just around the toll gate in Ibadan, on the Ibadan side. Again, we are suffering delays right now. The Oyo State government is building a drainage channel across the road. So we are having difficulties. The contractor has slowed down. We have slowed down also, because we don't want to finish the road and they cut it again to build drainage. On the Lagos end, we are working on the last 6 kilometers into Lagos. That is a very, very highly densely populated area. We left it for the last because we knew it would be the most difficult. So again, bear with us. We are hoping that very soon there will be relief there.
This message is brought to you from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us. The Lagos State chapter of the APC appears to have consolidated its preparation for the 2023 general election with the inauguration of the State Governorship Campaign Committee, also for the presidential in the state. The 116-man committee has Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu as the chairman, the state chairman of the APC as the deputy chairman, and the deputy governor of Lagos State as the vice chairman. Former senator from Lagos West, Ganiyu Solomon, is being appointed as the director general of the campaign committee. Let's get back to our conversation tonight. It's going to be some kind of assessment, reassessment, and a review of the campaign manifesto and promises of the PDP and the APC. Reno Omokri, a former presidential aide and a PDP member, has been talking to us from London virtually. And from our Lagos studio is Ajuri Ngelale, SSA to the President on Public Affairs and the deputy spokesperson to the APC Presidential Campaign Council. Thank you so much indeed, gentlemen. Before I bring back Reno Omokri into the conversation, we were talking about the criticism coming from the PDP, especially from Daniel Buwala, who said, look, the APC is, the campaign organization is in sort of activism against its own party ahead of the 2023 because it's talking about renewed hope. So what happened about the hope that they promised to Nigerians? Mr. Ngelale has been saying that it will not simplify the performance of the APC. But let me let you see these basic economic indicators. And we put side by side the pre-Buhari administration 2015 and what some of these indicators are presently. It will help Nigerians to be able to, for themselves, be able to judge and see and assess what exactly is going on. Inflation rate, 9% as of 2015, pre-Buhari administration. It's standing now at 20.77%. Unemployment rate, 8.1% in 2015. It's now in double digit, 33.3%. The debt profile of the nation was put about 12 trillion naira. It's now well over doubled, 41 trillion naira. Exchange rate, it was 197 naira to a dollar. The parallel market, as of today, is way over 800 naira to a dollar. And the bank rate is about $430, 40 naira to a dollar. Foreign reserves, $228 billion was in there. Now it's 38 billion. And the GDP growth rate, 2%, now 3%. So if you look at some of these indicators, Mr. Ngelale, would you say that your government, under President Muhammadu Buhari, has performed based on the promises he made to Nigeria, which includes adequate power supply, job creation, and other indices relating to the parity of the dollar to the naira.
Sheon, thank you very much. Before I begin, do I have your commitment that as I answer this question, that you will not interrupt me the way you did not interrupt Reno? Please. I will answer you.
Well, I've not interrupted you except when I needed to. So I allowed you to speak your mind. The way I've allowed you. Please go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much. I would like to land because this is very detailed and I want to be very clear with Nigerians about the facts that you've laid out and what we have to say about them. First and foremost, let us look at this issue of debt. If you can pull up the chart, that would be very useful for all of our viewers. But if you look at the issue of debt, you put on that list 12 trillion naira debt, right, as of 2015, national debt at 12 trillion naira, and then you put about, 41 trillion debt profile as of today. Now, this stat has been on most programming in some Nigerian news stations for a long time, absolutely and sometimes deliberately misleading Nigerians. And I say so because of this. And whatever I'm going to say now is verifiable, and I'll tell you where you can get the source of information. On the debt profile of 12 trillion that you're talking about there, it's relative to a currency value, right, of $150, 150 naira to $1 as of the time, 180 naira to $1 as it was at around 2015 or 197 thereabout. If you break that down as of the currency value at that time, the exchange rate at that time, what you will come up with is a total national debt figure of about at the time it was about $64 billion US. That is what we inherited on the first day in office, was $64 billion US total national debt. Now, if you look at the 41.68 trillion, right, and you're juxtaposing that not with 197 naira to $1, but with the current exchange rate where it is right now on the parallel, you will now get the actual debt figure as it is right now. And I believe at last check, if you look at the Debt Management Office, that's DMO. I invite every Nigerian listening to go to dmo.gov.ng to go and look at what the national debt was in 2015 and what the national debt is in 2022. What you will find is that when President Goodluck Jonathan took office in 2010, our national debt was $35 billion. When he left office 2015, our national debt was $64 billion. Meaning that he added essentially $30 billion to the national debt. Today, as of 2022, divide the 41 trillion that you're showing Nigerians, so boldly, by the parallel market rate, or even by the 438, and see what the figure is. What you will come to is you will see the figure is at about $95 billion or so, as of first quarter 2022. What that means is we added in 7 years. I want to be very clear with Nigerians. We added in 7 years to the national debt, the $30 billion we added in 7 years is what Goodluck Jonathan added in 4 years. We have all the infrastructure projects, roads across the country, bridges across the country, airports across the country, seaports, and all of these things, social investment programs, all of these MSME capitalization and all of that. To show what we've said is these are the people that took the same amount of debt in half the time. Let them show us what they did with that debt. They will not be able to show us. Now, so I want that to be very clear because that gives the misleading impression that we have quadrupled the national debt over the last 4 years, which is absolutely false because it fails to take into account devaluation. And this is the kind of thing that we need to avoid. Secondly, if we're talking about our foreign reserves, tell me how we came about the miracle that you have the highest revenues in the history of the country, an average of $110 per barrel and all of that, earning more than any other president had earned in history, right? And our foreign reserves were lower in 2015 than they are today after 2 recessions and a global pandemic and all of the hard infrastructure, social investment that we put in place. How is it possible that we increased it? I can tell you how. We stopped spending $4 billion a year on rice imports because we were too lazy as a government at that time to think about how we're going to feed ourselves and increase local production. We waited for President Muhammadu Buhari to come into place so that he could put in place the Anchor Borrowers Program, so that he could build rice mills and processing plants across the country, so that instead of paying $4 billion a year in scarce foreign exchange for rice we can grow here, we're growing it here, we're consuming it here, and now that $4 billion we can now use to partially fund our budget. Again, the next point I want to make, from 1960 to 2015, my dear brother, we were able to accumulate a total of 13 million taxpayers. I said 13, not 30. 13 million taxpayers in 55 years. In the last 7 years, from 2015 to 2022, we have been able to go from 13 million taxpayers to 35 million Nigerians paying tax in this country, a near tripling of that figure. How did we do that? People don't ask the question, why is it that in 2014, when the oil price started to go down internationally, we stopped funding our budget? Do you remember we were borrowing debt to pay salaries? We stopped funding the capital component of the federal budget. Why? Because we were in a fix. We were importing our food, we were importing everything, so we didn't have any money to devote to the budget. Why is it that after 2 recessions and a pandemic, we are still able to fund all of our annual budgets and all of that? The reason why is because we've substituted...
Yeah, I've allowed you to speak, but it won't be for forever.
No, but I have to answer your questions now.
On the program tonight. But you skipped the inflation. And
no, I've not skipped anything. I'm getting to that if you give me a chance.
But I'll come back to you in a moment. Let me allow Reno to come back into the conversation. And please put up for me the People's Democratic Party, the highlights of the People's Democratic Party's campaign manifesto. 75-year-old Atiku Abubakar is telling Nigerians what he will do. And this is a basic highlight of what he said he will do for Nigerians. Let me allow Mr. Reno Omokri. Okay, there you go. The slogan is, as one we can get it done. He has a 5-point agenda that is promised Nigeria, including security, economy, and prosperity. Mr. Omokri, the question Nigerians want to know is not this item that looks so familiar to them over the last election cycles. What they want to know is, how would this be done? Security, how? Economy and prosperity, how? Can you speak to this and perhaps also react to what Ajuri said?
Well, I didn't hear what Ajuri said. I think your engineers they blanked me out, so I didn't hear what he said. If you can brief me on what he said, then maybe I might be able to respond. But then if you talk about Waziri Atiku Abubakar, the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior. When did Nigeria have her highest GDP growth rate ever in our history, ever? In 2002. And who was in charge of the economy then? It was Waziri Atiku Abubakar as chairman of the National Economic Council. As you know, the National Economic Council directs the affairs of Nigeria economically. And so he's been able to, he has a good track record there. If you look at when they came in 1999, what was the GDP of Nigeria? It was about $59 billion. By the time they left in 2007, what was the GDP? It had risen to about $270 billion. That means it be multiplied by 5. If you look at the per capita income, when they said in 1999, it was $489. By the time they left, it had gone to $1,883. So you see, if you look at his My Covenant with Nigeria, the 5-point agenda, it's very, very, it is heavy on details. So you can read it and you can see details there. Like it talks about education, how he wants to improve Nigeria's economy via education, to make sure that education gets the highest sectoral allocation in the budget, to make sure that youths are equipped with the skills that they need to be employed, to be employable. And if you look at what's happening now, I'll give you a very good example. Last year, 2021, the British High Commission gave out 9,065 student visas. This year, they gave out how many? Almost 66,000 student visas. Why? Because there was the ASU strike. And because of the ASU strike, a lot of parents wanted to send their children abroad. Now, traditionally, Nigerians want to go to the United Kingdom, the United States, Canada, the European Union, and then Ghana. If 66,000 students are going to the United Kingdom, according to the data from the CBN, that's about $3 billion leaving our economy. By the time you add on the other countries, that's altogether about $5 billion. Our naira cannot be stable if we depend on other countries to educate us, to provide healthcare, and then to also feed us. And that's what he's addressed in his My Covenant with Nigeria, that education is going to receive the highest sectoral allocation so that ASU will be proactively funded. The university system will be proactively funded so that under a Waziri Atiku Abubakar presidency, there can never be an ASU strike. Now, if you look at what he said about the economy, he said that he wants the economy to be private sector driven. So the public sector will just stay within their core mandate, which is policy formulation and policy implementation. And then he says he wants to break government monopoly so that the private sector will drive infrastructure growth in refineries, railways, ports, power generation, power transmission. And if you look at his history as chairman of the National Council of Privatization, he's been able to do these things in the past, and he's going to come back and continue from where he stopped. Henry Ford did say that you cannot have a reputation based on what you want to do. So someone like Peter Obi and Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, their reputation is based on what they want to do. Waziri Atiku Abubakar's reputation is based on what he has already done. Look at what he talked about with security. For security, he says that there must be a register of births and deaths in Nigeria, and then Nigeria's borders must be fully policed. Why? Because insecurity, at the root of insecurity, is poverty. Now, if you want to address poverty as a government, you have to have social security. That means that people can be poor in Nigeria, but they cannot be poor.
Reno, just give me a moment. Give me a moment, because I put side by side the manifesto of Atiku Abubakar and Bola Tinubu side by side so Nigerians can see. Although everything seems to be all right. Maybe it's your device that is playing trick on you. Everything seems to be all right from this angle and from this, and our engineers can confirm that to you. Let me bring Ajuri into the conversation. The summary of the APC manifesto, just in about a minute or so that Reno used. Use that also to speak to the summary of your candidate's manifesto. And the big question is, how?
Thank you very much, Sheon. First of all, you laid out a chart that gave an impression of things that can easily be explained. That when I started to explain, you now said I skipped things when I was trying to get to them. But of course, you're saying there's no time, and now you've brought in another question that will take me in another road without me addressing the previous one. I will try to address this one you have asked me, but I would just like to say very quickly.
I mean,
yes.
Instead of spending that minute to complain, you've complained at every question that I threw at you.
No, I have not complained about the questions. I love your questions.
What television timing?
No. I'm not. Okay, thank you, but I'm not complaining about your questions. I love your questions.
Just go ahead, please.
Yes, I just want to be able to respond. See, let me be very clear. All right, you've asked me about the manifesto. If I'm going to respond and discuss our manifesto, right, I would just like a situation where we can break it down and have you challenge him on his candidate's record the way that you're challenging us on our record. I would like to see you ask the questions that people want to see of PDP's time and also of Alhaji Atiku Abubakar's time as the chairman of the National Privatization Council when Delta Steel of $1.89 billion was sold off for less than $70 million. And when the $3.2 billion aluminum smelting company in Akwa Ibom was sold off for $130 million to friends. These are things that we want you to ask Reno. Now, if you're asking me the tough questions, I will answer them. And I will talk now about the manifesto. The manifesto is very clear. First of all, we're building on the foundations. We're accelerating and modifying and really adding kind of value-added specifications to the various sectoral roadmaps that had already begun implementation under President Muhammadu Buhari's administration. For example, let's go to national security. One of the major things that His Excellency Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu is bringing to bear is he's saying, look, we have done a lot in terms of armament and spreading the presence of our armed forces across the country to deal with various threats. But what we need to do now at the next level of implementation of the reforms is to add specialization within our armed forces. So he's going to establish a forest guards reserve that will in real time be manning our various forest enclaves across this country to ensure that we don't wait for a situation where bandit groups can gather together, coalesce and plan within these forests. We will already have a presence inside of these forests with unique armament, unique equipment, and unique transportation mechanisms for them to easily traverse the forests. So we want to be very proactive in our approach to national security in a way that's a bit more specified than perhaps what we've been doing over the course of the last few years. So that's just a change. It's not so much a throwaway and replace. It's an adjustment and a modification. Now, if you look at agriculture, where are we now? We're in a situation where, yes, we've empowered our farmers, we've substituted our imports with local production, which is fantastic. Where we are now is we need to now get to the point where we increase the scale of cultivatable land in the country. Right now, we have about 35% of our arable land in this country under cultivation. We want to expand that to 65% by the end of the first term of His Excellency Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu as president, meaning that we're going to have more available land to cultivate so that the farmers that we have already whose capacity we have already built, who already has been, taken care of by this administration, we can now get more farmers into more arable land to increase production. If we're talking of education, if I may, just 2 more minutes.
Ajuri, we may not be able to get into that because we're totally out of time. But we do have opportunities ahead in the coming days on some of these things. We've done we've broken down some of your manifesto, both the APC and the PDP, side by side, and perhaps for Nigerians to be able to see, but we will not have time to dig deeper into all of that because we're totally out of time. I must sincerely thank both of you, Ajuri Ngelale, SSA to the President on Public Affairs and one of the spokesperson of the APC, and Ms. Reno Omokri, who has been with us virtually from London, a former presidential aide and a PDP member. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for your time tonight on the program. And that's our show for today, everyone. I'm Shunwa Kimaloe. God bless Nigeria.
Your name is a strong tower, Jesus.
The Church of Nigeria Anglican Communion presents the annual National Convocation of Christians, the Divine Commonwealth Conference, DIVCON 2022. Come and experience God's power through the exposition of the theme, At the Name of Jesus, by God's Apostles.
The joy of the Lord shall be your strength. In the name of Jesus.
Come daily from Monday 7th to Friday 11th November 2022 at the National Christian Center, Abuja. DIVCON 2022, a week of prayers, praise, testimonies and power at the name of Jesus, is convened and hosted by the Most Reverend Henry Ndukuba, Archbishop, Metropolitan and Primate of all Nigeria Anglican Communion. DIVCON 2022, come and be blessed.
Your name is a strong tower.
One expert, reliable bookmaker with high odds and bonuses for every taste. One expert, easy use, easy win.
In the game of life, one important thing can increase your chance of success. Confidence. Confidence is the game changer.
Confidence? Where do I find that, Jose?
First rule, you need a goal.
I don't play soccer.
Not that kind of goal. What do you want from life?
Happiness.
Success.
Checkmate.
Less worries.
Next, you need a strategy.
I got you. It's like a game plan.
Exactly. Put in the work and stick to it. Nothing pays better. Trust me.
No.
Then you need to be patient.
How patient?
More patient, success cannot be hurried. And most important of all, you need the right team behind you. Do all these things, and you will have the financial confidence to achieve anything.
Anything?
And everything, my friend.
Hello and welcome to News Track on Channels Television. I'm Kayode Okikulu. Our top stories at this hour. We'll begin with education, and it's an admittance of failure